This is the most complete guide to ad creative on YouTube. Over the next few hours, you're gonna get the full system for creating, testing, and scaling ad creatives. Everything from first research to full scale, all in one place. This system has been built and refined across hundreds of companies, including names like True Classic, Exter, OG, Skin Laundry, Pod Company, responsible for over $400 million in ad spend, and the pattern is always the same. The brands that scale and the brands that plateau are separated by one thing, and it's not a lucky ad or one viral moment, it's a repeatable creative system. So I've broken it down into three parts. First, how to create ads that actually win. Second, how to test it properly so you know what is working and why. And third, how to scale your winners and build a system that produces them consistently. Whether you're a brand owner, a creative strategist, or someone managing ads for clients, by the end of this video, you will have a complete playbook you can implement immediately. There are timestamps below for every chapter, so you can jump to whatever you need, but I would highly recommend watching the whole enchilada at least once, because each chapter builds on the last, and then you can come back anytime you want. This is what we're gonna cover. The one thing that separates brands that scale from brands that plateau, and it's always the same one. It's a system. It's a repeatable creative system. When I talk to business owners, they always point their fingers at the budget. They point their fingers at the lack of a unicorn creative strategist. I need the 10 out of 10 that's gonna change the trajectory of my company. That never works. In my experience, we placed over 200 creative strategists in the past few years, and it's just night and day when you have access to a repeatable creative system. Creating ads, launching ads, hoping something hits is not a strategy. It's literally the definition of a slot machine. It's a scratch off. It's nothing more than that. And it's exactly why 90% of brands stole between $10,000 and $50,000 a month on ads. You can get here just based on your offer market fit. You don't really need to be good at ads to get here. If you have a good product and if you have people that buy the product, so you are packaging it the right way, you can get here. And the fact that you're spending 50 grand a month doesn't mean you're good at ads, doesn't mean you understand creative strategy. So if you're here, this is where you learn that. So we are going to talk about why the system produces data that compounds, winners that multiply, and a creative portfolio that gets smarter every single week. This course is divided into three parts. Part one is create, how to create ad creatives that actually win. From research to briefs to the frameworks that every high-performing ad gets built upon. Then part two is all about testing. So we'll talk about how to test properly so you know what's working, why it's working, and what to test out next. And then finally, we'll talk about scaling. So how you scale your winners and build a system that produces them consistently. Whether you're spending $10,000 a month, whether you're spending $1 million a month, $10 million a month, it's always the same thing. You can basically expand what we're going to talk about here in this video. You can spread it across multiple pods, which is something that we helped many of our clients do, and it's something that we're doing internally at our agency, 99ads.com. And this is basically for anybody who's running ads, brand owners, operators, creative strategists, anyone managing ads for clients. By the end of the video, you'll have a complete playbook you can implement immediately. Again, you'll find the timestamps below. I would recommend watching the entire video here on one sitting. Just save it, stop, pause whenever you want to leave, and then come back. This is something that I believe is going to help a lot of people make a lot of money, thanks to ad creatives. So, Act 1, create. Let's start with creative research, finding what works before you make anything. The number one reason most ads fail is that they were never based on anything. Someone had an idea, they made it, they launched it, no research, no analysis of what's already working in the market, just gut feeling. Gut feel can work if you've seen thousands of ads across dozens of categories for 10 years, but gut feel doesn't scale, doesn't transfer to your team, and doesn't compound. Research does, and the goal is not to know more, the goal is to decide what to test first. And this is something that I would love to clarify. When we talk about creative strategy, we refer to the prioritization of the next most impactful creative move. And this is how we look at it at 99ads. Now, if you have a solid research behind and you're making your decisions based on that research, you can have educated guesses on what to test out next. And this is how you do it. And by the way, when I say that gut feel can work if you've seen thousands of ads across dozens of categories for 10 years, works a little better, but still doesn't work 100% of the time. So it's still very important to do research, and especially now considering AI, considering the possibility we have to build agents and skills around this, it makes no sense not to put in a great research. So why research comes first? Research connects directly into the 3A triangle, which is our proprietary framework, which includes audience, angle, and ad, and we will break it down in chapter 3. Research is the input that makes every step in this system work. Nobody ever generated a single dollar from research alone. So this is crucial to understand. Research is the input, testing is where you actually learn. I see so many people spend so much time, I'm talking about months, doing research, and you will never make a single dollar by researching. You can put yourself in a better position to make a lot of money later on once you start testing out your ads, but if you focus exclusively on research and you don't turn that research into ads, it's gonna be impossible for you to scale your ads. So let's understand research, very important. It's not how we make the money. We really need to act and to take action and to spend money on ads, unfortunately, but it is how it works. So at 99 Ads, we divided the research process into 3 steps. The first one is marketing analysis of the brand itself. Step 2 is audience research, and step 3 is competitor research. So let's start with step number 1, marketing analysis of the brand itself. This is literally internal data, as is just that. And one thing that I would love you to understand when it comes to research is that different types of research come, or at least different types of sources of data come with different levels of accuracy. And it's very important to understand the level of accuracy of the data that you are processing. In this case, internal data, if you're looking at your own ad account, your own website, your own funnel, your own offer, your own pricing, your own customer feedback, you know for a fact that that data is accurate. This doesn't happen when you're doing competitor research. This doesn't happen when you're doing audience research, for example. So keep in mind that the higher the level of accuracy, the more you can trust the data and the more you can trust that research. Most people skip this step 1 entirely. Before you go hunting for competitor ads or creative inspiration, you need to understand the decisions the brand has already made. So what you want to look at, the first thing is the ad account. You want to pull up the top performing campaigns in the last 30 to 90 days. I like going up to 180 sometimes, depending on how much budget was spent on the ad account. 30 to 90 is usually the most relevant, especially the last 30 days. And you want to look at the best and worst creatives by spend and performance. And what I want you to understand here is that in this entire system, we never look for the good ad. We never look for the bad ad, but we look for patterns. And most of the time, you'll find that you are not finding a great winning ad, but you're finding a bunch of great winning elements. And this is how I would like you to start approaching ads and creative strategy in a way that's modular, in a way that you can keep on building and keep on learning from. So you want to ask yourself, what are the formats that keep showing up in the top spenders? What are the hooks? What are the angles? And one feature that I really like is the report feature that you'll find in the ad account. I believe it's great to analyze creatives. Obviously, you have third-party apps such as Triple Whale, Hyros. You have literally probably dozens of them. If you have access to those, good, you can use them. I still really like the ad account and how easy it is to go around it once you understand how to structure it properly. Then the next step is the second level of the first step, is the website and the funnel. One thing that I want to look is what are the offers that we are promoting. I kind of want to have a matrix, a map of all of the offers that we are promoting. I want to make sure that the landing pages are relevant to the ads. I want to make sure that what the ads promise then gets delivered by the landing page, by the website. And if there's no relevance between the ad and the landing page, there's no amount of good ad creatives that can fix that. So it's something that you kind of want to fix even before you start. And this is the perfect time to do that during the onboarding process, or when you start working on a new project, or when you kind of want to take on your company's creative strategy as a brand owner. You want to follow a system like this one, then this is where you kind of want to start. You look at your offers, your landing pages, your ads, and how everything is coherent. Then the next thing is the offer and the pricing. What's the main sales mechanism that we're using? Is it a single item? Is it a bundle? Is it a subscription? Is it a quiz funnel? You want to see how the price is positioned. Is it a premium offer? Is it a value offer? Is it somewhere in the middle? Where are we? Are we offering guarantees? If yes, what are they? What have we tested in the last 90 days? Then another thing that tends to work really well is customer feedback. AI can be incredibly powerful. Reviews are on your website, on Amazon, on Trustpilot. You have a bunch of emails you've gotten from clients. You have support tickets. You have comments on your ads. You have customer service. I usually put this on the last level of the first step, simply because customer feedback is great, but it's not usually where I find innovation for my ads. It's not where I find innovative angles. The way you promote your product brings in a certain type of client. So somehow you're going to find similar customer feedback until you're going to open up a new audience, which is something that usually comes down the road a little later. We'll go through everything, so don't worry. Now, AI has completely changed the research game. So in this case, I'm walking you through everything because I truly believe even if you use AI and even if you have great skills built, you still ideally want to understand how it works. It's something that if you can break down and you can see where AI is hallucinating or where AI is just getting it wrong, it's good that you know how to get there. But right now, to be completely honest, you can let AI analyze your ad account. You can let AI analyze your website and funnel. You can do it with offer and pricing. You can do it with customer feedback. So it's good. It's incredibly good that you understand how it works and how what are the steps to get there. But right now with AI, you can really do a lot of things. And this might be something that we talk about in one of the next videos. If interested, let me know in the comment section. With that said, take a batch of reviews, 50 ads, 100 ads, 200 ads, feed them into AI. Now, again, you can do this with literally everything. The prompt is not relevant. You can ask GPT, Claude to create even better prompts that are customized to your specific situation, to your specific business. So take this with a pinch of salt. The real point is that right now with AI, you can do a lot of things. To give you an idea, we are currently breaking down entire ad libraries of our clients' competitors. We're doing very advanced things in terms of analyzing our own data. So either way, I would recommend you spend a lot of time using AI, or you hire us to create ads for you, and that's probably the easiest solution. If interested, you'll find the link in the description. It's 99ads.com/demo. But anyways, if you use AI and you want to use it yourself, you want to use the 10-80-10 framework. This is something that we used for assistants back in the days. This is the 10%, this is the input, then the assistant does the 80%, and then you do the final 10%. We're currently doing it with AI. To be fair, ever since like agents came around, I like seeing a 90-10 framework where the agent does even the initial 10%. You can schedule tasks, you can get the agent to start working on something, just like giving it a very simple prompt. So this is something that you want to take in mind, you want to take into account. But again, things are moving very fast in this world, and it's the reason why I'm so excited about teaching creative strategy and sharing what I've learned over the last decade, because I truly believe that as time goes by, the value of one single creative strategist is gonna grow exponentially. The output that you can get from just one person, or you can get as a single individual creative strategist, is enormous. So this is how you do things, how you do it in practice, how you do it practically. Today is the 24th of March that I'm recording this video. On the 1st of April is probably going to be different. So again, take it with a pinch of salt. I don't want to tell you something that's going to get obsolete in 1 week. That said, output of step 1, the current main offer, the current main audiences, the current main angles that are working, what needs to be protected, what are the obvious gaps here. Then we move into step number 2, which is audience research. And this is where we zoom in on people. And one of the most important things when we talk about the audience is that there's a massive difference between women 25 to 34 in the US and women 25 to 34 in the US postpartum who are losing their hair, feel like they're not recognizing themselves anymore, and have already tried 3 products that didn't work. The first one is a targeting parameter. The second one is a person who you can write an ad to. Now, we don't necessarily look at audiences this way, where you kind of need to have all these specific details, but we like adding buying context. We like adding motivation. We like adding identity. So for each audience, we want to have 3 things that are very clear. Identity. Who are they? How they see themselves? What tribe do they belong to? What are their beliefs? What are their motivations? What's driving them to search for a solution right now? And then buying context. Where are they in the journey? What have they already tried? What objections do they carry? So these 3 things are so important when it comes to understanding your audience, and it's so different from women 25 to 34 in the US. There's so much more to that, and I would like you to understand how intricate it can get if you add identity, motivation, and buying context. Now, to show you how we do things internally, here is our board. And this is something that I would highly recommend you look at, not because it's perfect, but because it's very simple. And as you can see here on the left side, we have the research boards, and it starts with the marketing analysis, which is the one of the brand itself. Then you have the audience research, which is here, primary audience, secondary audience, key quotes and language that this specific audience uses. And then finally, you have on the 3rd step, the competitor research. Marketing analysis here is where we add all our product reviews, all our comments on ads. We add all the gaps and issues that we see in our current strategy, the value proposition, the functional product, physical product, whatever we're selling. The 3A framework. What are the best performing audiences? What are the best performing angles? What are the top 10 winning creatives? And we want to have the link and description. And this in a way is going to add like our dashboard. This is what we're going to refer to every time we need to create a new batch of ads. The second step again is the audience research, and this is where we add all of the details that I mentioned before. Now, the next level is the competitor research, which is step number 3. And step number 3 is where usually everybody starts, but it's very important for me to share that competitor research is what you do at the last step of the research. This is something that people tend to underestimate, and I don't like that because the accuracy level in the competitor research is usually very limited. I know that there are many people who get access to spy tools, interns at whatever advertising company that give you access to screen sharing of ad accounts of your competitors. that's whatever you want to do it. But I truly believe that you should take into account the accuracy level of the data you have at your disposal, and internal research is usually where you find the most innovation. That's my point. Now, step 3, competitor research. You can find a lot of things, and it's true. It's something that I highly recommend you get very proficient at, and this is how we do it. But again, people start here. That's backwards. I don't like that. You start with internal data first, and then you move outside. There are 2 types of competitors, and this is another thing that most people mess up. The first type is the direct competitor, and in our system we see it as same category, same audience. This is what shows you the current category norms, what's already working in your space, and this is good to kind of like understand the meta game in your industry and in your category. But where you're gonna see most of the innovation is the indirect competitors, which is different category, same audience. This shows you how indirect competitors are targeting the same audience. This can be where real opportunities are hiding. And if you learn how to make the most of indirect competitors, you'll never run out of ideas. This is where everything starts when it comes to competitor research. I love the fact that Meta now has to be transparent and share the type of ads that everybody's doing. I spend a lot of time on ad libraries. I would highly recommend you do the same if you want to become a good creative strategist, or if you want to be the person that moves the needle in your own company when it comes to ad creatives. So in this case, you can see this company is running 660 ads. These are active ads. And one of the things I like the most, this is one of the latest updates, is that you can rank the ads by impressions, so from the highest to the lowest, and by most recent. And this was a massive change, because now you know what are the ads that are getting the most impressions. And if they're getting the most impressions, most likely are the ones that are printing the most amount of money, especially in e-commerce brands. So what you can see is when the ad was launched, and you can see the entire video of the ad. And this is great because you can see the ad details, you can open it up, and you can literally see what are the transcripts that are working for this specific brand. When it comes to ad libraries, I usually recommend our creative strategists to analyze ads per groups. So you want to see what are the elements that are repeated across multiple ads, and most likely the ones that are repeated are the winners. So if it's hooks, if you see the same hook 3 times, 4 times, most likely that's a winning hook. If you're seeing a certain formula multiple times, that's probably a winning formula. If you're seeing a specific whitelisted page with an actor or a person that's talking about the brand, that's probably a winning one. That's probably a winning creator. Now, you can do a lot of things in other platforms. I also published a video about Calo data back in the days. It's amazing, and you can see actual numbers coming from TikTok Shop. That's all great. What I like doing today is literally building a skill that can take down all of the ads of an ad library, analyze all the videos one by one, connect the dots, connect the patterns. Is it possible to do? Yes. It's kind of a long process. Again, if you're interested, let me know in the comment section, and I'll be happy to talk about anything. But this is something that makes ad library research and pattern identification so much easier compared to watching all of the ads one by one. It's still good to live in the ad libraries, but you can definitely speed up the process quite a lot with AI, agents, skills, and so on. So usually what you want to do is collect 20 to 50 competitors. You want to download their videos, copy links, take screenshots, take it as transcripts as well, or as I said before, you can build an agent to do it. What you take away is not let me copy this, but it's more about what are the angles that are saturated in my niche? What are the angles that are repeated for my competitors? Which proof patterns are standard? Where are the gaps? Audiences nobody's speaking to, outcomes nobody's promising, objections that nobody is handling. The main problem with competitor research is that you don't have access to their data. The easiest way to make an educated guess on what works for them is looking at repeated patterns. So as I said before, I love analyzing ads in groups, and I believe this is what you should do if you want to get serious and if you want to learn how to take ethically from your competitors. Whatever you see repeated multiple times is probably a validated element. Don't limit yourself to analyzing the hooks, but look at the ad in its entirety. Analyze the landing pages, analyze the offers they're running. Again, you can build a skill to do that, and I believe that's the right way to go about it right now. But looking at what they're offering is incredibly important, especially if they are direct competitors. Now, before we wrap up the research part, once again, how far you want to go before you get started with actual running ads. For a new brand, the entire research sprint, marketing analysis, audience research, competitor research, can be done in one focused day with AI. The reason why I'm saying this is, again, because I've seen many people who spend months doing research, weeks doing research. If you spend one full day and you have a clear structure like the one I just gave you, one day is more than enough. When you have a clear offer, audience, and angle snapshot, a few solid audience profiles, a list of internal and external angle ideas, you are ready to start building your first batch of tests. There's a choice you're making every day: being a researcher who lives in spreadsheets and never ships anything, or being an operator who uses research to make informed bets and then goes and tests them. One thing that I would love to mention here is that being a good creative strategist doesn't mean coming up with the best ideas right away. Doesn't mean going all in on your first batch. And this is what I believe most brand owners, company owners do wrong when it comes to hiring a creative strategist. I see so many people that push so much for the first trial, and they just expect the first ads that the creative strategist creates to work right away, to perform, to outperform anything. And I see this also with some of our clients sometimes that come to us, hey, you guys are the experts, create ads for me, I need winners. And they expect the first batch to outperform everything they've ever ran right away. I believe that's a stupid approach if you are trying to evaluate the work of a creative strategist. I truly believe that a good creative strategist is not the one that creates the best ads right away, but is the one that analyzes the results, understands what has worked, what didn't work, and iterates the right way. And the iteration game, in my opinion, is the most important part of what a creative strategist does. Creative decision making is the most important skill you want to learn and you want to optimize for if you're hiring a creative strategist. So I wouldn't focus on the first batch, hence I wouldn't spend weeks on the initial research. I would spend time analyzing the data. I would spend time looking at what has worked. I would analyze time at understanding what's going to move the needle and what's going to get us to spend more on ads in a profitable way. But you see the creative strategist in the iteration, analysis and iteration, in my opinion. Now, Act 1, Chapter 2, we are still in the testing phase. And now we talk about the strategic brief. So this is where we turn research into actionable direction. You can have the best research in the world, but if you can't turn it into a clear brief, your creative team is still guessing. The brief is where strategy becomes execution, and most briefs are terrible. A couple of sentences in Slack, a random link to competitor ad, and a vague do something like this, that's not a brief. That's you outsourcing your job to the editor and hoping they read your mind. In our system, the brief is the final step of creative strategy, not an afterthought. Why is this important? Because I every day, literally every day, talk to people who complain about the output of their video editor. And the reason why video editors spend so much time creating videos is because 50% of the time is spent trying to understand and interpret the briefs they get delivered. And that is just not ideal. That's just not the right way for them to spend their time. So everything starts here. If you give a good, well-structured brief, not only the video editors are going to spend less time creating the ads because they don't have to analyze whatever you wrote, but they can start producing right away. They know exactly what to do, how to do it, how to get the right content to add to the ad, so they can do everything right away. And most importantly, there are less misunderstanding, meaning less revisions. So the amount of revisions we used to get when we didn't have a well-structured strategic brief was ridiculous. Right now, we have close to zero every single week. And this is why. So there's a little more heavy lifting from the creative strategist, but it's worth it. Now, what a strategic brief actually is. By the time you write a brief, the thinking is already done. You know who you're talking to. You know what angle you're pushing. You know which validated elements you want to use. You have references that show how you want it to look and feel. The brief is where you compress all of that into clear instructions so an editor can execute without guessing. Which leads, as I said before, to less revisions, and also you want to have happier team members. And this plays a big role in it. Now, the brief structure is very simple. This is how we structure it. As you can see here, we have different columns. We have a left side with all the instructions, and we have an upper side with all the details of the delivery time. On the right, I usually add a long video as well. I like adding the long video just to make sure that there's literally zero chance for the video editor to have problems and not understanding what I'm talking about. But as I said, we have three main zones on each brief board. The first one is the left column. This is where we have instructions and audience snapshots. The instruction card explains the color code, which you can see here, adds the naming convention for the ad, so explains how the video editors should deliver the ads, and I'll show you in a second how to do it later in the video. And the 20% speculation rule, how we usually look at it. Then the second box is where we talk about the audience. And I like personally adding all these audience details and pain points and motivators to the brief board, because video editors are usually great at highlighting things based on what they're trying to do and what they're trying to achieve, but also because being like the video editor position is usually the best one to upgrade into the creative strategist position. So if you start explaining to the video editors what are the actual reasons why you're making decisions and you're making the brief look that specific way, that's how you basically train them into a future creative strategist position. The audience card is a short summary of who this batch is for. And as I said before, editors do much better work when they know who they're cutting for. This one card can change the entire feel of the final ad, so I like adding it. Then top bar, you have the batch metadata, which is the delivery day, platform, and any global notes in case we have a Black Friday push or a UGC only batch. Sometimes it's a statics only ad batch, and this is where you add this information. And then in the center, you have the actual concepts. And for each concept, you have a specific column. The column contains a clear concept name following the naming convention, a short hypothesis, e.g. identity hook for beginners will beat routine demo on CTR. And this is our hypothesis, and this is what we want to validate with this specific concept. The audience and angle pulled from our strategy work, the key building blocks that you want to use, specific hooks, problems, benefits, proofs, CTAs, whatever you need, at least one reference video showing structure and pacing, and the color-coded script. Again, here you have everything. You can see the color-coded script. I like going very heavy on references just to make sure that everything is clear. Here you have the what to keep, some numbers. I like adding numbers. These are obviously random numbers. I like adding numbers for the video editors as well. So slowly but surely they start understanding what we're optimizing for, what is a hook rate, what is a hold rate. If we're trying to optimize for higher hook rate, they can help us do it. And this is the hypothesis, for example. If we show the before and after in the first 2 seconds, then we can expect hook rate to increase. Why do we think that? This is where we add everything. We have specific instructions for this specific ad, and then we have obviously the script with all of the variations. Now, one thing that I always like to add is a reference video. So these are ads from competitors. Obviously, these are just placeholders. But the important part and the interesting part is that when we started adding video references, the amount of revisions went down exponentially. And this is one of the things that I mentioned before, that when we implemented the current strategic brief, the amount of revisions was just night and day, much lower compared to before. And I believe that the reference video is one of those things that you should always add. And you get most of the reference videos during your research. So this is one more thing that you can add to the research level. Now, we talked about the color code system. And this is something that allowed us to save a lot of time, our creative strategists to save a lot of time. And this is basically the language. It's some sort of hidden language between you as the creative strategist and your editor. You guys share this color code and you don't need to explain every time, hey, these are instructions. Hey, this is on-screen text. This is a voiceover. These are links. You know it. And they know it. So if you both respect it, you cut briefing time in half and eliminate 90% of confusion. The standard we use, you can do your own. You can change the colors, you can change the meaning, you can do whatever you want. This is between you and your editors. Red is editor instructions, camera notes, editing notes, timing. Does not go in the ad. So the editor knows that if it's written in red, they don't have to add it as an overlay text on the ad, for example. Then in black, we write the on-screen text. So anything the viewer reads on the screen. Then in green, we have the voiceovers and spoken lines. So anything meant to be heard. And then in blue, we have links and assets. So reference videos, raw footage folders, logos. I showed you already. Here's our color code explanation. If you like it, you can copy it, just pause the video, copy and paste, do whatever you want, take a screenshot. But when you write the script block, you wanna add your own color code, just in case for whatever reason it's not clear, it's confusing. Just make sure it's there and make sure that your video editor is not gonna get it wrong. When editors read it, scan for green, understand the story, scan for black, see what will be written, follow red, they know how to cut, and click blue, grab footage, reference, and start editing. As easy as that, and you can see how much faster it is for your video editor if you do it this way. Now, from concept list to full brief, the exact flow. This is how we do it. It decreases the amount of time we spend creating briefs by a lot. So I would highly recommend you do something similar. If there's anything that I would like you to take away from this video, is that you never open a blank brief and see what happens, but you always follow a flow just like this one. Again, nothing is set in stone, especially during the agents era. So check this out, take inspiration from it. But if you see it as a static thing that you have to replicate precisely, it's not gonna serve you well. So take it, get inspired, create your own version of it, use your own brain to create agents to help you with this, create skills to help you with this. This is a starting point. And it's a great starting point, but it's just a starting point. Step 1, start from performance insights. Look at the last 14 days and answer which winners are still printing, which near misses deserve a second shot, where is there room for bigger swings. I really like the bigger swings question, especially when we are plateauing, which is something that I'm guessing most of the business owners watching this video will feel like if that's the situation. Again, link in description, 99ads.com/demo. If you're spending over $30,000 a month on Meta ads, you get a free audit from us. And this audit is basically a custom scaling roadmap that you can use to break through your current plateau and basically do it effortlessly, because we'll take care of your ad creatives. With that said, step 2 is mapping out each concept to its own column: concept name, product, audience, angle, format. Step 3 is pulling your ingredients. So from the building blocks repository, which I'm going to show you later, you have the specific hooks, problems, benefits, proofs, CTAs that are validated. Then from your reference board, you take 1 or 2 external references showing the structure. So what I'm talking about here, back to our board, to the right side, you have on the ads analysis level, you have the building blocks repository. And this is where you basically put all of the winning elements of the ads that you analyze, all your best performing problems, educate, failed alternatives, solutions, best performing angles, best performing audiences. You kind of want to have here a repository of everything that's proven to work. And then another board you want to build is the creative references. And this is where you basically drop all of the ads that you kind of want to copy from your competitors, both direct and indirect. When I say copy, obviously take it with a pinch of salt, but you understand what I'm talking about. What happens usually is that your entire team is going to send you ads on Meta. They're just going to literally share the ad, share the reel. Then you have some of those ads on Telegram. Then you have some of those ads on Slack. Then you have some of those ads via email, via WhatsApp. You want to make sure that you put all of these references into the creative references board. And this is how you do it. We do it very simply. We tag or label all of the scenes with a color, and the color shows internal, derived, and external ads. But this is basically what it is. It's pretty simple, very straight to the point. With that said, let's go back to our script. Step number 4 is define what to keep before you write what to change. This is critical for iterations. It makes things much easier. You want to list the non-negotiable elements for each one of the concepts that you're iterating. And you want to add a specific line from a winning ad, a product shot timing, a guarantee CTA, whatever you don't want to touch, you list it first. So you know what you're starting with and you don't have a blank brief, as I said before. Step 5, you write the script using the color code. So you'll start from the hook, the body, the CTA. You want to remove ambiguity as much as you can. The editor should not have to invent the narrative, should not have to spend hours interpreting what you're talking about. Step 6, design 3 to 4 variations per concept, not 3 to 4 unrelated ideas, but 3 to 4 structured variations of the same concept. Most important part here, you want to isolate the variable. So you don't want to have a bunch of different variables. You want to have one variable and focus on one variable per concept. Finally, step 7, write the hypothesis line for each concept. You want to make sure that everybody knows you included when you are going to look at the results of these ads, what you were trying to validate with your hypothesis. So in this case, showing transformation in first 2 seconds will left thumbs up and click through. Let's see if it happens, and you do that during your results analysis. For throughput benchmarks, when you're just starting, 30 to 45 minutes per concept column is good. But once you have a solid building blocks repository and you have a good reference board, 15 to 20 minutes per concept should be okay, especially if you use AI. That's how one creative strategist can realistically handle 25 concepts per week with 4 variations each, which is 100 ads, and still have time for analysis and strategy. If you keep the system tight, founders feel like they're working with a small studio, not with a freelancer. And again, agents can change this math. But we'll discuss this in another video. If you're interested, again, let me know in the comment section. And by the way, if you're here, subscribe, like the video. You can see how much time it takes to shoot a video like this one. But I really like doing it. But if you enjoy, you should let me know. And you can do that by hitting the like button and, most importantly, the subscribe button. Act 1, Chapter 3, the 3A framework and direct response foundations. Why ads actually work. This is the chapter that separates people who make ads from people who actually understand why ads work and can engineer results on purpose. There are 2 things that we need to cover. Our proprietary 3A framework, the decision framework that we use for literally every creative decision, and the direct response foundations that tell you what to say and how to say it depending on where your audience is. So let's start with the 3A framework. The 3A framework is basically this one. And again, most of your creative decisions live inside this circle. The circle represents the offer, and then inside the offer, you have a triangle. The triangle is basically what represents any validated ad that you might have, any Grand Slam ad. And any Grand Slam ad consists of an audience, an angle, and an ad. Everything falls under the offer. Every creative decision lives somewhere inside the triangle. Audience, angle, and ad. And everything that wraps the triangle is a circle that represents the offer. The offer is always the biggest lever you can pull. Nothing scales a bad offer, and a great offer makes average ads work. That said, the offer is typically not on your plate as a creative strategist. It's not typically a lever that you can pull or you want to pull. It belongs to the founder, the brand, the CMO, the head of growth, whoever is working on the offer. Your playground is mostly inside the triangle, but you want to keep in mind that the offer literally changes the math completely. So it's something that you want to take into account, especially as you're scaling, especially as you're growing. And we'll touch on this later. Now, again, your playground is inside the triangle. In this 3A framework comes with a risk-reward hierarchy. So from bottom up, you have highest risk to lowest risk, but you also have highest reward to lowest reward. What do I mean? The offer is a very high risk, very high reward type of variable, which means that opening up a new winning offer is very hard. It's going to lead you to spending a lot of money. But if you do that, the reward is going to be very high, which means that you're going to be able to spend so much more money, so much more ad spend on a new offer that makes it, again, the biggest lever that you can pull. Then the audience is a high risk, high reward type of variable. It's hard to open up a new audience and to make it profitable, but the reward is high. New audience means new buying context, new creative, new unknowns. So it's complicated, but if you manage to do that, your ad spend goes up. This is a big swing. Then the next variable is the angle. Here, the risk is medium, the reward is medium, I would say, not medium high. And this is basically a new promise or framing within a known audience. So you have a winning offer, you have a winning audience, and you focus on opening up new winning angles to sell to that specific audience. And then finally, you have the last variable, which is the ad creative. This is where there's a low risk of failure rate, simply because you already know what works, you already know what are the winning offer, audience, angle. So you change the packaging. The risk is low, but the reward is also low, because typically finding a new winning ad alone is not going to increase your ad spend. It's not going to give you the opportunity to spend much more money than you're already spending, but it's also something that you can do relatively low risk, so with a limited failure rate. And this is something that I usually see founders confuse, because they come to you, they come to us and ask, so what is your typically failure rate? What is your typical win rate? And that is a question that's kind of stupid, because if I'm focused on opening up new angles or new audiences or new offers, obviously my failure rate is going to be higher because the risk is higher, but the reward is also going to be higher. If I'm optimizing for limiting the failure rate and increasing the win rate as much as I can, I'm only going to play it safe. And in that case, I'm only going to be finding new variations of my winning ad, and that's it. So does it make sense to track the win rate? Absolutely. But it also makes sense to track whatever you're using as a metric to evaluate success. We usually do ad spend, and if we're scaling the ad spend, if the ad spend numbers are growing, then it means that whatever we're doing is working. I much rather have an ad spend that's growing than a failure rate that's very limited, or a win rate that's at 30%, but the ad spend is stable, it's not moving. So these are a few things that I would love you to see from a different perspective. Now, practical order of operations. Always move from lowest risk to highest. Can we execute the existing winning angle better? New hooks, better editing, tighter CTA? Can we find a new way to frame the product for the same audience with a new angle, for example? Can we speak to an entire different group of people, new audience? Should the brand change the offer? This is obviously the nuclear option. This order protects the account. You exhaust low-risk moves first, very important, then you take big swings. Messing up this order is what most of the time leads to instability, and this is why so many accounts have good months, good week, bad week. This is why they focus on the next level, but they forget about feeding the previous one. So they focus exclusively on the angle level, and they are not keeping alive the one angle that was paying the bills, basically. So if you want to jump straight to we need new audiences when you don't have properly iterated your winning ads, you're just literally lighting money on fire. And every time you go up a level, again, you need to keep feeding the lower one. Now, let's try to go more into the details. Let's talk about the audience. Again, beyond demographics, a real audience definition combines 3 layers, as I said before: identity, motivation, buying context. Let me give you some examples. Let's talk about a red light therapy panel. Different audiences can be senior, 55 plus with joint pain. These are retirees, managing chronic pain, skeptical of gadgets, need peer social proof. Then you have fitness enthusiasts, 25 to 40, biohackers, gym goers, want science-backed claims, influenced by athletes. And then you have beauty salon owners. These are small business operators evaluating the ROI per square foot. This is the same product sold to 3 completely different audiences, so it's gonna need 3 completely different messages, completely different hooks, proof types, formats, and so on. Why it's important to understand this? Because if you don't get this, you're not gonna get this. And it's crucial to understand that you can't attack all of the audiences all at once, because otherwise you're just gonna mess it up. And if you do that, you're not taking into account the creative strategy. Like, you're doing everything but creative strategy. As I said before, creative strategy is the prioritization of the next most impactful move. And in this case, you need to understand when it is the most impactful move to go from seniors to 55 plus to fitness enthusiasts, from this to beauty salons. And you always want to exhaust the previous one before moving on to the next one. Let's make a critical distinction here as well. I don't think you need this specifically, but just in case, since many people get confused, I want to make sure that we don't mess that up. What is the offer? The offer is what the customers get. Buy two, get one, get it free with a 90-day guarantee. The angle is the promise or framing that makes the offer relevant to the audience. Finally, sleep through the night without pills. And then the hook is the first 1 to 3 seconds that stop the scroll using the angle. I threw away my sleeping pills after 1 week. An angle is a strategic choice. It lives in the brief. A hook is a creative direction of the angle. It lives in the ad. And you can have many hooks per angle and many angles per audience. When you test, you need to know which level you're testing at. If you change the hook and the angle and the audience all at once, you learn nothing. As I said before, you want to isolate the variables that you are testing. And if you do this, you're going to have no idea what worked, which means you're basically wasting money. Now, speaking about angles, we use the Epic framework to generate new angles. I constantly talk about this, and I truly believe it's a great way to find new angles at scale. Imagine an XY axis. On the X side, you have feelings on the left, facts on the right, and bottom up, you have indirect and direct. So, Epic stands from emotional, practical, identity, and critical. E, emotional. These are angles rooted in feelings. Be there for your kids. Help the people you love. You tap into love, fear, pride, guilt, and aspiration. P is practical. These are angles that are rooted in solving a specific problem. Stop waking up with back pain. Cut your recovery time in half. I, identity, angles rooted in who the customer wants to be. Join 50,000 biohackers, the tool elite athletes trust. And C, you have critical, so angles that are rooted in logic and efficiency. Why pay $200 per session when you can own it? The only FDA cleared device at this price. For any product, you should be able to generate angles across all 4 categories. If you look at your current ad account and realize every angle you've tested is practical, chances are you've never touched emotional, identity, and critical. And that's like a great gap that you can attack and use to find new winners. As I said before, untested territory where your next Grand Slam winner might be hiding. Speaking of direct response principles, something that I need you to understand for the testing phase is the levels of awareness. Now, the most popular one is Eugene Schwartz's 5 Levels of Awareness. It comes from Breakthrough Advertising. Great book, highly recommend it. If you're looking for books on this topic, great one, must read. And there are 5 levels. You can use this triangle to kind of like remind yourself of these 5 levels, but they're very easy to remember. The first one is completely unaware. These people don't even know that they have a problem. And in this case, your ad needs to bring attention to the problem, show the cost of staying as they are. Then the second one is problem aware. They know the problem, but not your type of solution. Then you have the solution aware, which is where they know the solutions exists. They've seen other brands, but they still don't know about your product. Step 4 is product aware. They know your product, but haven't bought yet. So in this case, you want to remove doubts, push urgency, guarantees, and social proof. And then finally, most aware, these are existing clients, people who know about your product, and you want to get them to buy again, upgrade, and refer. This is not always the case. I mean, sometimes you don't see the most aware as people that are existing customers, but people who've shown interest in your product and you just want to get them to buy. Either way, these 5 levels are very clear and give you enough structure to understand who you're talking to. And these are 5 levels that are very important to understand. Now, this has become much more relevant and important ever since Andromeda was rolled out. Meta's algorithm now understands where each person is in their buying journey, and it knows who's just scrolling, who's actively searching for a product, who's been to your site 3 times. Your job as a creative strategist is to make sure that you have ads that match each stage, and you want to feed the algorithm with all these different ads. The way we do it is we kind of want to build an ecosystem around each winning ad that we have and slap everything into a CBO for the scaling campaign. We'll get to the scaling phase soon. In this case, the algorithm has something relevant to show every person it reaches. If all your ads are product-aware, hard sell ads, and someone who's never heard of your product see them, they scroll right past. So it's going to be hard to go from spending 10 to 50 to 100 to 200. It's usually always a different level of awareness that you kind of want to crack. And the algorithm is in a position where it wants to help you. And most people get this wrong, but the algorithm wants you to spend more, but it can only work with the creative that you give it for now. Maybe in the future it's going to change. We don't know that. But when I train new creative strategists, I also try to simplify this topic with the following chart. So this is how Eugene Schwartz looked at it a long time ago. This is how I look at it. You have 4 types of person, of audience on social media, and this is usually indifferent, frustrated, open, and ready to buy. You have different goals for each one of these different levels. For the indifferent, you want to capture their attention, and you do that sparking curiosity with entertainment and so on. I shot the video on this in my Andromeda series. If interested, finish this video and then go there, watch it. I'll make sure it's linked somewhere here. Then for the frustrated people, so the people who already know they have a problem, they have high intent of fixing the problem, but they don't understand that there's a solution, you want to get them to relate to you. You want to get them to relate to your solution. So in this case, you basically focus on the problems that they face every single day, but you do it with somebody who is relatable for them, somebody that looks exactly like them. Then you have people who are open. So they know that there's a solution, they're conscious of the solutions, but they have low intent to buy yet your product. And in this case, you want to educate them on why your product is better. And then finally, you have those that are ready to buy, who have high intent and are conscious to know about your product, and you want to push these guys, you want to convert them. And this is the type of ad that you want to focus on. Based on market sophistications, this is another thing that you kind of want to make sure you understand. And this is what the market has already heard. So based on how new is your solution to the market, people most likely have heard something similar. Based on that, and based on how many competitors you have, how many people are selling the same offer, you want to have kind of like different stages to approach the market. Market sophistication basically asks how much has this market already heard from your competitors. So 5 stages. The first one is introducing the unseen. You're first to the market. This is my product. It exists. This is what it does right now. And if you're here and you're not too early, this is a great place to be, because then you can ride through all the phases, all the stages, and make a lot of money. Stage 2 is outbidding the competition. So there are a few players, you can outbid them, more X, less Y, faster Z. So you kind of want to have a better solution than theirs. You know that you're competing, so it might be a price difference, it might be a better solution, it might be a cheaper solution, it might be a faster solution. Stage 3 is introducing the mechanism. This is where the market is crowded, and you want to show how your product is unique. You want to make sure that they understand your unique mechanism. Step 4 is where the market is very crowded, and you want to elaborate your mechanism. You want to go deeper on why your mechanism is better, easier, and safer. Finally, you have reviving through identification. This is the markets that are saturated. You have usually less mechanisms and more identity. These are usually the type of products that people need to live, so they keep buying, and they kind of want to have different brands and identifying different personas when they buy this product. So the evening ritual for high performers who refuse to age like everyone else. You don't need to explain what you're selling, but you kind of need to sell why this is the one that those who refuse to age like everyone else use and choose. How do you understand in what stage of the market you are, in what stage of market sophistication you are? Are you early? Are you in a crowded market? Are you in a saturated market? Based on that, you want to decide how you promote your product. And if you misread the stage, your ads most likely are gonna fail. And this is not because your product is bad, but because your messaging doesn't match what the market needs to hear right now. Putting it all together, the checklist, run this on every new product or brand. You want to identify the core life force desires your product satisfies. You can do this on Google. You can find everything on Google. And this is, again, from Breakthrough Advertising. You want to map your main audiences with identity, motivation, and buying context. You want to define the level of awareness level. You want to assess your market sophistication stage. You want to generate angles using the EPIC framework, and make sure that it respects all three dimensions. When you do this, your angles stop being random and they start printing, basically. When you can sit down, look at the product and the market and decide with intent what kind of ad your account needs next, that is creative strategy. So this is Act 1, Chapter 4, Production and Ad Formats. And this is where we make ads fast without sacrificing quality. You've done the research, you've written the briefs, you know the frameworks, now you need to actually make the ads. The biggest mistake I see here is brands treating every single ad like a Super Bowl commercial, overproducing, overthinking, overspending. Speed kills perfection in creative testing. So if you're optimizing for perfectionism, you cannot optimize for performance. And this is something that I would highly recommend you tattoo on your forehead, because many people are wasting so much money and time of other people because they just want to have a good looking ad. If you optimize for performance and you are a creative strategist that tries to do their best to get results for their clients or for their own product, you don't want to deal with this type of person and this type of mentality for yourself. So let's look at the format landscape in 2026. Since Andromeda was fully rolled out, the platform genuinely understands the buyer journey. It knows who's in your brand, who's actively looking, and who's never been in your category. That changes how you build your creative portfolio from the ground up. You can't just make one ad and throw it at everyone. The move is to build a creative ecosystem, different formats for different points in the buyer journey, and let the algorithm do the matching. So going back to the previous chart that I showed you, again, we have indifferent, frustrated, open, and ready. For indifferent, you have skits, native trends, edutainment, ASMR, POV, meme, and cultural references. For frustrated, you have PAS, problem, agitate, solution, de-influencing, myth busting, did you know, before and after. For open, you have educational mechanism, comparison, explainer demos, and testimonial. And for ready, you have offer, scarcity, guarantee, risk reversal, testimonial compilation, and UGC mashups. I recently published another video on this topic, giving you my entire tier list of all the formats that are currently working in 2026. So I would highly recommend you go watch that video after you finish this one. To recap everything that's in that video, but in that video you have all the examples, so I still recommend you go watch it. The tier list is very simple. For an aware audience, it's exactly what I just read, so I'm not gonna go through that again. If you want to take this tier list, just block the video, take a screenshot, and do that. Back in the days, we used the GPP method for scripting, and it's a method that when I'm writing my own ads, I still use, so I kind of wanted to quickly touch on it here on this video. For any format, your ad script structure usually follows the GPP method that got the brain in the pocket. And I like this because it's incredibly simple to understand and also to explain to the people who work with us. All ads usually start with the gut. And the gut means that you want to take their gut. In 2 seconds, you don't have enough time to make it logical and rational, but you want to take their gut. You want to take their feel. You want to take them from the gut, from a instinctive level in a way. Then the next part, the body, is more logical. And this is why we want to appeal to the brain. We want to get their attention with the gut. And once we have their attention, we want to convince the brain. This is where we explain the unique mechanism. This is where we stack social proof. And the more relatable these people are to our target audience, the better. And then finally, we want to take their pocket. So the CTA, this is where once we grab their attention, we convince them, we make it incredibly simple for them to give us their money. So we want to have clear instructions. We don't want to rush the CTA. We don't want to create fake urgency. This is how we look at it. And if you're starting from scratch, I think this is a great method that I'm personally still using. As regards the production workflow at scale, this is how you go from 5 ads a week to 50 ads a week. The first step is shooting content in scenes. One of the biggest mistakes I see is people booking a massive shooting and going all in on one specific concept that they don't even know it's gonna work. So when you do that, when you hire people for a shooting, you don't want to book an entire shooting for one ad. You want to book one shoot and get, at the very least, 30 to 60 scenes. You want to script multiple hooks, multiple prof segments, multiple CTAs, and you want the creator to record all of them in one session. Then step number 2 is repurposing aggressively. One shoot should generate 10 to 20 ad variations, sometimes even more, especially if you work with modular ads. And the same footage, different hooks, same A-roll, different B-roll, same concept, different length for different placements. Then you want to use AI for the first drafts. If you don't have certain scenes, you can use AI generated content to test out things before you shoot. And then you want to focus on modular editing. As I said before, you're not creating winning ads from scratch, you're assembling them. So this is where you get once you have enough volume and you understand what works for your specific brand. Now, the one very important question that I wanted to add to Act 1 is quality versus volume. But what about quality? Don't I need polished, beautiful ads? You need to test creative concepts first, and you want to focus on high staged, high quality, production quality second, if needed. Most of the time it's not needed. A great concept in rough production will beat a mediocre concept with perfect production every single day. The concept is the strategy. So the audience, the angle, the hook, the story, and the production is just the wrapper. So what I like doing is testing cheap and fast, finding the concepts that resonate, the ones that convert, and then invest in higher production quality for your proven winners. Once you have a clear winner, then you invest in production. And this is how you get the best of both worlds, speed and quality in the right order. And this is it for Act 1. You now know how to research your market systematically, how to turn research into clear briefs that your team can execute, the frameworks that make ads actually persuade real people, and how to produce at volume without losing quality. But knowing how to create ads is only half the battle. The other half is knowing which ones actually worked and why. And this is what we're going to talk about in Act 2, which is all about testing. But before then, if you're finding this valuable, do me a favor and drop a like on this video. Make sure you subscribe. There's a lot of stuff like this that I'm posting every single week. We're going very hard on YouTube. So make sure you drop a like, you subscribe. Takes a long time to put it together, and it helps find more people just like you. So, Act 2, test. The testing framework, how to test creative properly. This is kind of a big one. Got a lot of questions on how to do creative testing framework, what is that we do in terms of testing new ads. This is it. So this is where most brands go wrong. They launch 5 ads, one gets a good ROAS, they call it a winner, and they scale it, that's it. But that's not testing, that's closer to gambling. And it works about as well as gambling does. In a real testing system, every dollar you spend on testing should buy you something specific. And that thing is data. You're not trying to profit from testing. Scaling is where you earn. Testing is where you learn. The moment you mix those two is the moment your account becomes a mess. Does this mean that we're not ever gonna make money from testing campaigns? Absolutely not. But you want to have very clear what you're buying when you're testing new ads, and what you're buying is data. And if you have this clear distinction between testing and scaling, that's something that's going to serve you very well in your testing framework. So let's start with the account structure, testing versus scaling. When you look at the biggest ad accounts, 500 grand, 1 million a month, 2 million, 3 million, and so on, they all share one thing most of the time. And the thing is simplicity. For sure, the best accounts I've been in, and the biggest ones as well, are the simplest ones, which is something that makes me think most of the time, because the smaller the brand, the more complicated structures I see, and the more different campaigns they have, multiple ad sets in the CBOs, multiple ABOs, it's just a mess. The account structure is so clean that anyone could log in, understand what's happening, and continue running it with the same logic without anybody explaining it. The first time I joined a multiple 7 figures a month account, I had so many expectations about that specific account. I was expecting chaos. I was expecting a mess. And what I found when I joined the account was mind-boggling to me, because it was the opposite of what I'd seen up until that moment. It was very clear, very rationally built, and from the outside, just based on the naming convention of the campaigns, I could see exactly what was the function of each campaign, what offer it was promoting, what geolocation was going to, how it was promoting it, what audiences. It was just beautiful. And that's the red thread that connects all of the best accounts I've been in, I got access to. They're tidy, they're simple, and they have a scalable structure. Now, our philosophy, as I said before, is straightforward. For every dollar, every cent we spend on ads, we want something back. And we have two things mainly that we want to get. In the testing phase is data. So in the testing campaign is where we want to learn. For every dollar we spend here, the return we want is data. If we get profit, that's good. But if we don't get it, and we get enough data, and we get the right data, we're happy with it. The scaling campaign is where we earn. For every dollar you spend here, the return we want is profit. And these are the two jobs, and they're very different. They need two different campaigns for that. Most advertisers sometimes mix testing and scaling together and treat every campaign like it needs to produce profit immediately. The result is that neither testing nor scaling works properly. And that sucks. So I wouldn't recommend doing that. I've seen lately many people are just using one CBO campaign for everything. I don't like it personally. I haven't seen it work in big accounts. Some people are happy with it. I'm definitely not somebody who's gonna fight on that. If they're happy with it, good. Most of the time we see the classic structure, ABO, testing, CBO, scaling work just fine. But I know that sometimes some ad accounts have some magic, and for whatever reason, something works in some accounts, something doesn't work in others. So whatever, my go-to setup is the following. We use an ABO campaign. This is where you control the budget per ad set. And within the ABO, each ad set equals one concept. And this is some sort of a golden rule. So for every concept that we have, that we deliver to our clients, we expect one ad set to be created. This is usually 4 variations, sometimes 3, sometimes 5, depending on what we are testing and what is the hypothesis for that specific concept. But usually this is how we look at it. Now, a concept is not just another ad, but it has a clear hypothesis behind that we are trying to validate. Maybe we want to see if a new hook can lift click-through rate on a winning ad. Maybe we want to try the same angle in a new format, turning a testimonial into a listicle, for example. Or maybe we want to open a completely new audience with a fresh new angle, and we want to do it with a different concept. Each of these concepts has a clear hypothesis, and each one gets its own ad set. Every concept starts with the same budget as well. You're not biasing the outcome by giving more spend to one over another, which is also the reason why I'm not personally the biggest fan of testing campaign in a CBO. You're not biasing the outcome by giving more spend to one over another. This is why I'm not the biggest fan of testing ads in a CBO. You want performance to reflect the creative, not the budget allocation. Ideally, you want to give each ad set enough budget to collect around 50 conversions in a week. That's when results become statistically reliable. I have an entire series on this as well, on media buying in the channel. So subscribe, finish this video, and then go watch that one. So you have more information. But if you're working with a smaller budget, I know most of the time it's not possible to have 50 conversions in a week per ad set. But ideally, you want to have an ad validated when the ad has spent around $900 and brought about 10 conversions at KPI. In that case, you can consider it strong enough to graduate. Obviously, take this with a pinch of salt. Different AOVs might be different. This is some sort of a golden rule that might change depending on what you're promoting. Now, what are the rules that you want to keep in mind to make sure that the testing stays clean? There are two rules that prevent testing from becoming an expensive hobby. The first one is what we call trim the fat. In the first days of a test, you'll usually see one or two variations start picking up spend and pacing toward KPI. Others will stall, eating budget without producing results. If an ad clearly is lagging behind while its siblings are showing promise, you simply turn it off and you give your potential winners more room to breathe, so more budget. The second one is the stop loss, and this keeps things simple and universal so the whole team can follow it. If an ad spends roughly 2 times the target CPA without producing a conversion, you kill it. Same goes for ads that generate a couple of sales but still sit at roughly 2x your CPA. There's no reason to let them run, so you want to kill it. Together, these two rules protect the testing campaign from waste. They ensure dollars flow toward ads with a genuine chance of becoming winners. Whatever survives, spends $900 and generates minimum 10 sales at KPI, gets graduated to a scaling campaign, and winners are duplicated into scaling, where the objective shifts from learning to profit. Very simple, very straightforward. Then one more thing that you want to take into account when it comes to testing your ads is the weekly portfolio mix. A testing campaign isn't about 1 or 2 ads, but it's about running a balanced portfolio every week so your scaling campaign never runs dry. This is something that really changed our approach towards ad creatives, and this is something that really improved our results. Now, I'm going to give you some numbers, and these numbers are my way to take a stand, to take a position, because I should say, as an advertiser, as a marketer, as an entrepreneur, that every time everything depends. And I don't like doing that because it's obviously something that wouldn't help you. So I'm going to give you 3 categories, some percentages per category. Just adapt this percentage to your specific situation. Every week, every month, the situation might be different. You might have different goals. You might have a different health score of the account. So you want to make sure that you are working to help and support your current situation. You don't want to stick to these numbers just because I get them to you. But it's a great way to start. Each week's testing pipeline should be made of 3 main categories: Grand Slam iterations, promising low-profile iterations, and big swings. Some people prefer doing 60-20-20. So they swap promising with Grand Slam iterations. The reason why I like doing less Grand Slam iterations and more promising low profile winners is that you have many more opportunities to find new winners, like brand new winners with this structure. So where you're trying to turn the near misses into Grand Slam winners rather than multiplying the Grand Slam winners. Multiplying the Grand Slam winners is not hard. You basically take everything that you already have, you change 20% of it, and the chances of it being a good winner are very high. But if we can produce brand new Grand Slam winners, then this is the amount of ads that we can multiply grows more and more, and that's where you get the highest returns, and you can increase your ad spend much more. So I like this structure. Some people do it the opposite, but this is something that serves us very well for now. So 20% Grand Slam iterations. Your strongest winners reimagined with 20% of changes, new hooks on the same body, new caster on the same script. This is where you multiply what's already working. As simple as that. Then 60% promising low profile iterations. Near misses and quite workhorses. These are the promising and low profile iterations. I'm gonna explain in detail what are these different types of winners, and I know for a fact that you're gonna love this topic. But these are ads with a lot of potential that hit a bottleneck, that have a clear choke point. And what we wanna do here is basically unclog this choke point so that they can become Grand Slam winners. And then finally, we have the big swings. These are the fresh concepts designed to open new angles or new audiences. And these are speculative by nature, but essential for keeping the pipeline alive and discovering the next generation of winners. So you always want to kind of have a nice balance between iterations and brand new stuff. This is how we structure it. I would highly recommend you start working on your own weekly portfolio mix, because it's something that really allowed us to scale much faster. And this mix creates balance because the Grand Slams keep things stable. The promising iterations squeeze more juice from what you already paid to learn. And the big swings expand your future surface area. If you're spending your weeks launching 80% brand new concepts and barely touching your winners, you're doing it backwards. Iterations is the main lever. Net new is the side bet. And this is what I usually see most brands do wrong, most companies do wrong. For whatever reason, they are obsessed with trying to find net new ads, and they try to focus exclusively on net new ads, leaving on the table this goldmine of iterations that they could literally turn into money as if they were an ATM. If you have winners, if you spend at least multiple six figures on ads, you are sitting on a gold mine. So iterations is your way to dig into that gold mine. So it's very important that you understand how crucial they are to get great results. Then let's talk about naming convention, because most people tend to confuse what the naming convention is there for. They think it's some sort of admin work, tedious, boring, that they have to do. But naming convention is where analysis starts. If you have a solid naming convention, your analysis is going to become so much easier. It's not even funny. So let's check out our naming convention sheet. By the way, if you want any of the resources that I'm talking about here in this video, you need to reach out to me on Instagram at It's Alessio, DM full course, and I'll send you all the resources, including the big PDF file and all of these sheets that I'm showing you here in the video. Now, this is our naming convention template, naming convention spreadsheet. The reason why this is great is that it basically creates the ad name automatically. So you change a few things here, or you add, obviously, if you don't have whatever you need in the drop-down menu, and it creates an ad name that's ready to be copied and pasted. And this is what the creative strategist can use, what the video editor can use, and what eventually the media buyer is going to use to launch the new ads. Once you have a clear naming convention, it's going to be so much easier for you to do analysis, not only on the ad library, in terms of understanding what is in the ad without using the preview, but also to rank all of the ads that are attacking a specific audience, through a specific angle. Ads that come with a specific format, or the ones that are attacking a specific level of awareness, or the ones that are related to a specific product. So everything is here, and this allows you to speed up your analysis by so much. It's absolutely incredible. So every time I hear people and I see people treat the naming convention as if it was something that they do because they have to do it, that is that you don't want that person to be you. You want to see the naming convention as something that helps you get better results and make more money, which is the reason why we are here in the first place. So before a single ad goes live, every creative needs a name that encodes its DNA. It sounds boring because it is boring, but it's also one of the most valuable things you will ever do. You'd be surprised how many ad accounts come with names like this one: video, final, V3, MP4, whatever. A good name comes with the batch name, the concept name, the variation, test type, format, audience, angle, ad awareness level, product model, and delivery date. Now, comments and delivery date are actually not on the naming convention, but this is something that we add here to the template just to make sure that everything is correct and in place. But from that one line, you can read everything you need. And why does this matter? Because when you sit down to analyze, you need to slice the data by any of these variables, and you can do it literally at a snap of a finger. Which angle is working best for your audience? Which models are worth rebooking? Which concept types produce more grand slams? If those variables aren't in the name, you can't reliably answer any of these questions. Or at least you can do it, but it's going to take you so much longer, and it's not ideal. The Google Sheet is where every key field is a dropdown. It's not just free text that you add randomly. In this case, again, we have a certain dropdown. You can fix this with anything you want. You can edit it. You can add new things. You can add new voices that are more specific to your product and to your brand. One label per dropdown, and a formula concatenates everything into the final name automatically. The name gets used everywhere, from brief titles to export file names, ad name in the ads manager, task name on ClickUp. One name used everything. Now, a sloppy or not existent naming convention is the biggest telltale sign of amateur analysis. A tight, boringly consistent one is one of the clearest signs of a professional creative strategist. So if you are getting hired, or if you're starting to work with another company, naming convention is where you impress. So this is something that I would highly recommend you take into account. Then chapter 2 is reading the data. So what the numbers actually tell you. Let's say you've tested 20 ads, you have the data, now what happens? Most people look at ROAS and CPA, pick the winner, kill the losers, and move on. That means 90% of what the data is actually telling them. The goal is not just to find winners, it's to understand why things win so you can create more of them intentionally. So where you look. As a creative strategist, most of the time you look at the ad level. Of course, it's important that you understand how to find your way around the ad account. Important that you understand campaigns, ad sets, but the ad level metrics tell you which specific creative is doing what and why. That's where I would focus on if I'm a creative strategist. Tools like Motion, Triple Whale help see patterns across groups, but they don't replace you actually watching the ads and matching them to the numbers. This is why I like starting from the ads manager. And again, I really like the report function. Now, in terms of the ad analysis workflow that you can do on a weekly basis, step one is choosing the time frame, the right time frame. Usually you want to default to the last 14 days at ad level. Depending on ad spend, you can do it on 7 days. Some people tend to do it more often. I like gathering more data. We usually default to the last 14 days at the ad level. If you have enough volume for patterns in 7 days, in a higher spend account, you can use 7 days. In lower spend accounts, you sometimes might need 30 days, but ideally 14 is it should be enough. Lower spend accounts are a little trickier, but in that case, I usually, in a way, try to pay less attention to data analysis and try to find as fast as possible something that allows us to spend at least those 10 to 20 grand. Step two is sorting by amount spent. So not by ROAS, not by CPA, by amount spent. This shows you what meta is actually backed with budget. And if an ad spent 15 grand and another one spent 37, the first one defines the account, even if the second one looks prettier, even if it has a higher CTR, higher hold rate, it's spending less. So it's not worth spending as much time as the one that's spending 15 grand. Prevents the classic junior mistake of falling in love with low spend unicorns that never get real budget. And this is something that sometimes happens. Hopefully it's not your case. Step three, scan the creative funnel. For each high spend ad, you want to quickly classify them. I'll show you how to do it later on, but long story short, if you have a strong hook and a weak hold, it means that the opening works, but the body loses them after 3 seconds. If you have a strong hold and weak clicks, people watch, but they don't feel called to act. You might want to change quite a few things, especially the body. Strong soft metrics, poor hard metrics. You are entertaining the wrong people or the landing page is broken. And weak across the board, something that's not worth exploring. You just want to kill it and move on. Now, here I talked about soft metrics, hard metrics. What are they? This is probably one of the most important distinctions in creative analysis. Soft metrics are basically all of the metrics that live inside the platform, the advertising platform. So everything that happens before the click. You have the hook rate, the hold rate, the CTR, the CPC. This tells you if the ad is doing its basic job, stopping the scroll, keeping attention, or creating intent to click. The good thing here is that they're fast, so you can read them after a few hundred impressions. You don't need to see a whole bunch of sales to get soft metrics. So usually you get an understanding of how soft metrics are performing without having to spend thousands of dollars. However, what they don't tell you is if the traffic is qualified or if the offer converts. For those, you're going to need hard metrics. And hard metrics are all the metrics that live after the click. So everything that happens on the website. Add to cart rate, conversion rate, CPA, ROAS. And they tell you the business reality. You can't deposit hook rate in a bank account, unfortunately. Would be amazing for a lot of creative strategists. But we want money. We need ROAS. One big difference between the two is that hard metrics might be affected by attribution problems. And this is something like this can be another 5-hour topic to discuss. Whereas soft metrics usually most of the time are reliable. So this is something you might want to take into account. And as I said before, you have 4 patterns that usually happen when it comes to soft metrics and hard metrics and how you basically correlate the two and the combination of the two with what to do and what it means. If we have strong soft metrics and strong hard metrics, it means that we have a true winner. What we want to do is protect it and multiply it. Now, if we have strong soft metrics and weak hard metrics, it means that we need to fix the offer, the landing page, or the targeting. This means that the creative works, but the backend doesn't. So what happens on the social media platform is good. What happens after is not great and needs a little bit of work. If we have weak soft metrics but strong hard metrics, this is what we call the ugly duckling. And what you do with it is reshoot the same message with better production. As simple as that. Then you have weak metrics, weak soft and weak hard metrics. What it means is that it's a dead ad, and you want to kill it and move on. You don't want to spend too much time working on something similar that like doesn't really show any signs of growth and return. Now, reading retention graphs, this is another one of those metrics that we really use quite a lot, and I see many creative strategists completely ignore. But basically, Meta shows view percentages at 25, 50, 75%, 95%. in 3 seconds as well. So the notion of what we're trying to do is very simple. You want to create a custom metrics to see where people are dropping. So 25% minus 3 seconds, 50% minus 25%, 75% minus 50%, 95% minus 75%. And you see where you have the biggest drop rates. And based on that, you can kind of estimate how each part of the ad is performing. Now, what to do if you have a big drop between 3 seconds and 25%? People stopped, but instantly realized that this isn't for me. This means that the hook is working, but there's no value after the hook. Watch past 25%, but drop at 50%. The body isn't rewarding enough. Same shot for 20 seconds, drifted from the main purpose. So this is something that needs a little bit of work after the first 25%. Stay to 75%, but drop near the offer. The topic is good. The offer framing is weak. There's no urgency, no reason to act. So these are all things you can use to understand where your best performing ads, where your low profile winners are, and how to fix them, as we said before. Then what you want to do is map those timestamps back to specific parts of your script, and that is the surgery area. This is where you want to cut, tighten, or replace only that specific block. Connecting data to action, again, just like the research, also the analysis doesn't really allow you to make money. It's important, and you make so much more money if you do data analysis the right way, as well as if you do research the right way. But if you limit at researching, or if you limit yourself at analyzing the data, but then you don't do anything in terms of actions, you are wasting your time. So what you want to do is connect to the naming convention, filter winners by angle, audience, concept type, model, offer, and so on. And this is where the naming convention stops being theory and starts paying the rent. Then you want to form your own hypothesis. You want to turn patterns into short, testable statements. Identity-based angles for moms, 35 plus outperformed product-only angles by a wide margin. One lever per statement when possible, and concrete enough that it clearly suggests a next test. This not only works as a next test, but also works as a backlog if one day you're going to hire a new creative strategist, or if one day you want to have to train a junior creative strategist and you want to show them why you're saying something specific. You can send them back to your whole hypothesis and your all learnings and show them why you're now telling them something specific, something that you know and understand now after spending so much money on ads. And then you want to translate it into action. For each key ad or pattern, you want to choose one of 4 actions. The first one is protect, which means keep or increase budget, keep variations in the weekly delivery plan. Iterate, use retention and funnel metrics to decide what to change. New hooks for strong body, weak hook ads, stronger CTA for high retention, low CTR ads. Adapt, same winning core, different wrapper, new season, new offer, different placement length. And finally, kill, stop spend. Log the combination so you don't rediscover the same loser in 2 months. These 4 actions must turn into tasks with owners and due dates. Otherwise, analysis is just an intellectual entertainment. You just don't want to do that exercise. Now, let's move on to chapter 3. Iteration and winner types, turning winners into more winners. So this is something that we built internally and really helped us change the way we do iterations. And I truly believe this is one of the biggest unfair advantages we have against our competitors when it comes to the agency world. Again, if you're looking for an agency and you want us to take care of pretty much everything that I talked about, or just interested in what I'm discussing, but you don't want to do it yourself, you don't want to manage people to do it, you don't want to just learn how to do it literally yourself as a brand owner, the link below, 99ads.com/demo, is what you need to click to have us work on your free scaling roadmap, so we can show you what we would do if we were to work with you and then implement it for you. It's very simple, very straightforward. If you're interested, again, 99ads.com/demo, and we'll get to talk soon. That said, the different winner types are something that, again, changed completely the way we do iterations. And every time you find a winner is where the real work starts. Most companies out there, most operators focus on finding that winner, but that's where the work starts. And that's the reason why at the beginning of this video, I was telling you that the creative strategist, a great creative strategist, is not the person that goes all in on one first batch, but is the person that understands how to analyze, how to iterate, and how to make creative decisions. So this is where the work starts. Once you find a winner, that's where the work starts. A single winning ad has a shelf life. The question is whether you can turn that one winner into 10. But before you iterate, you need to know what kind of winner you're looking at, because not all winners are the same, and treating them the same way is the fastest way to break your account. So let's start explaining the 3 different types of winners. Again, this was one of the biggest learnings for our company. Please pay attention. The first type of winner is the false winner. This is the type of ad that looks amazing after 24 to 48 hours, sometimes 72, and then collapses the moment you increase budget or try to relaunch. So usually you have an incredible ROAS, super low CPA, everyone excited on day one, but then when budget gets doubled within 48 hours, CPA triples or ROAS dies. Sometimes you don't even need to increase the budget, simply because it was just an attribution problem. It was kind of a good audience for whatever reason. It was, again, a lucky CPM window, attribution noise. It was just not a solid winner. It was just a mistake. It was just a coincidence. So what you want to do with it, you don't keep relaunching, hoping to recapture day one somehow. You want to salvage any validated blocks, anything that actually works. If the hook has a strong hook rate, you extract it. If a problem scene had a great retention, you keep it, but you want to archive the ad itself and move on. And investing iteration budget into a false winner is the most competitive mistake you can make, the most expensive and also competitive mistake you can make. Then winner number 2 is the low profile winner. And the low profile winner is most of the time the most misunderstood winner that you can find in any ad account. What happens with it? This is the type of ad that performs profitably at a modest daily budget, $50 to $200 a day. When you push it into a big scaling campaign, it chokes, doesn't get any spend for whatever reason, or loses efficiency. But if you put it back at its sweet spot in the ABO campaign, in the testing campaign, it quietly returns to profitable behavior for weeks, and it just keeps bringing in sales. Now, what most operators do wrong is that since they didn't scale, since these ads didn't scale, they kill it. And that's a massive mistake, because 10 low profile winners stacked at even as low as $100 a day, it's still $1,000 a day in stable spend, profitable spend. And that adds some sort of a stability layer to your ad account. So what you want to do with it is you want to keep them alive at their sweet spot once you find it. And in order to find it, you keep just bumping the ad spend within the original ABO campaign and see where they stop performing, and that's where you want to stay. Then you take your low profile winner and you plan some what we call surgical iterations, fixing one choke point at a time. You want to use your metrics to find the bottleneck. You want to see if it's a hook problem, CTR problem, if it's a retention problem, and based on that, you swap the parts that are the culprit with other scenes and elements that are validated and proven to work. You want to change one block at a time and test at the same budget. If the variant improves and holds at higher budget, you might have just turned a low profile winner into a Grand Slam winner, and that's what everybody wants. Number 3 is the Grand Slam winner. These are the rare ad type that spends real money, holds and improves everywhere you put it as you raise the budget, and works across multiple campaigns, days, weeks, months. And this is the type of ad that carry usually 80% of the account spent. Grand Slams are rare, and you pay to find them. So once you do find them, your job is to protect the original and multiply it carefully, not to improve it until it dies. So you have a Grand Slam winner, you want to multiply it. That's what we do. Now, how do we do that? So how do we iterate on our Grand Slam winners? And the way we look at it is more as phases rather than like random ideas and random iterations. And you want to move through this order. Again, this is what we do. Is it a one size fits all? Is it something that it's the only way for you to multiply your winner? Not really, but it's a great way to do it. And I really like working in frameworks and processes, and this makes it very easy for me to explain it to other creative strategists, how we work. So I like that. Now, the first ladder of iteration is the hook refreshes, and this is what we call the early iterations, and this is where you change basically the first 3 to maybe 5 seconds sometimes. And you have different visual opening visual, different first line, different pattern interrupt, but same body and same CTA, same everything else. This is your first line of defense when a Grand Slam winner starts showing lower hook rates. You can have multiple hook variants live at the same time, same midsection, same end, different doors into the same house. Second ladder is the script tightening, and this is what we call the script iterations. This is where you squeeze more performance from the same winning story, but you can cut deadlines, you can shorten the slow intros, or you can add stronger social proof, or you can remove some testimonials. If retention shows a drop between 20 to 35 seconds, the chunk becomes your surgery area. So you play with it. You cut, you tighten, you replace only that specific block. The third ladder is new caster, new actor, and location. This is what we call the fine-tuning. And this is where the script stays 100% identical. Same story beats, same offer, same CTA. You only change who delivers it and where. Different age, gender, and setting. Customer versus founder versus expert. These are different casters, different voices, and this is a good way for you to fine-tune your ad. Right now, using exactly the same script is not recommended, but just rewriting it a little bit and maintaining the same structure tends to work very well for us. Ladder 4 is the late stage spin-offs. With late iterations. This is where you take DNA of the Grand Slam winner and you go a bit wild. You basically mix all of the things that we tested in ladder 1, 2, and 3 and mix them up all together. And these are high upside bets, not safe iterations, so you want to treat them accordingly. But this is a simple sequence of iterations you can use, and a clear ladder that you can use to maintain your Grand Slam winners alive. One thing that I wrote here is that you start iterating when a Grand Slam winner starts showing lower hook rates. That's not necessarily true. You want to start iterating right away so that by the time results start going down, you already have an army of other winners of iterations that are winning iterations that are bringing in sales. So your ad spend stays stable, stays profitable, and you don't really fear the quote unquote death of your only one winner. Now, the 20% speculation rule, it's something that we use, and it's some sort of a guardrail that holds everything together. When you iterate on any winner, you want to make sure that 80% of the ad stays built on the validated building blocks, and 20% is the deliberate named bet that you are testing. If you can't clearly say what the 20% bet is, you're not testing, you are gambling. If you change the hook, the body offer, and the actor all at once and call it an iteration, that's not an iteration. You basically reset everything and you're testing something that's not new. In terms of how the rule works at portfolio level, it still applies, and 80% of creative output should come ideally from proven DNA, and keep maximum at 20% of true speculation. And this is how you keep your win rate healthy while still giving room for breakthroughs. It's kind of a good way to structure your weekly portfolio mix and your entire structure of the account. Finally, you have the building blocks repository. And this is where the compound interest of creative actually happens. Every time an ad performs, wins or loses, you should be extracting something from it. Winners get broken into validated blocks, hooks, problem scenes, mechanism, explanations, proof segments, CTAs. Each becomes a card in your building blocks repository with the exact script, keyframes, and performance notes. Keep in mind, losers get logged too, so you don't accidentally retest them, and you don't spend $1 twice to learn the same lesson, right? And most of the time, people tend to forget about this part. You want to learn from the winners and you want to learn from the losers. I showed you the building blocks repository earlier. It's very simple. It's basically a board that we use to collect all our winning scenes, everything that's validated and proven to work. These are cards that we created based on what we usually save, but obviously if you don't use educate scenes, problem scenes, failed alternative scenes, you can customize this to your specific formulas and what usually works for your specific brand. But the important part is that you have a repository of everything that is working. So you create this board and put all the cards. When you do that, I usually recommend adding not only the script, but also the actual media piece. So you use the actual video here on the board. And the reason why I like it is not only for learning purposes. So when you onboard a new creative strategist, they know exactly everything that you've learned already, but most importantly for inspiration purposes. I really like to go through the building blocks repository to get inspired, to get inspired by winning scenes, by something that gets my clients to buy. So this is something that I really like doing, and I would highly recommend you do the same. And you want to think of building blocks like Legos. You want to have a modular approach to ads. And if you want to start creating more ads, you want to stop looking at ads as something that you build from scratch every single week. But you want to look at ads, you want to approach ads as if you were assembling new combinations from proven pieces. So it becomes much easier for you to brief new ads, but also for the editor to produce new ones. And this is where creative stops being an art and starts being more similar to engineering. Over time, your building blocks repository becomes the most valuable asset in the entire creative system. It's institutional memory that compounds every single week. And the building blocks repository, we wrap up Act 2 You now know how to test properly, how to read data, how to turn the data into decisions, how to classify winners, how to iterate systematically, but all of this only matters if you can scale it. And that's what Act 3 is all about. Before getting into Act 3, once again, please subscribe, like the video, make sure you comment and you let me know what are your thoughts on everything you learned so far in the video. This is a lot of content. This is very advanced stuff. So if you are a creative strategist, if you run your own brand, or if you want to become a creative strategist or a brand owner, this is the perfect setup for you to start with. Let me know in the comment section what you think about it. So, Act 3, Chapter 1, Scaling winners, increasing spend without killing performance. This is a juicy one. Everyone's had this experience. You find an ad that's crushing it. You get excited, you double the budget, and next morning your CPA has tripled. Scaling creatives isn't just about spending more money, it's a system. And this is what we're gonna uncover in this chapter. So, the scaling campaign. If the testing campaign is where you learn, the scaling campaign is where you earn. The two must stay separate. Again, many people right now are using the one campaign thing, the one CBO to do everything. Personally, I don't like it. Personally, none of the brands in our portfolio that I've seen are using it unless they're very small. But it's more of a consulting approach or somebody who comes to our school community calls. The scaling campaign is a closed door club. Only proven winners get in. No the maybes, no early winners, no it had a good first day. This is designed to be clean, stable, and profitable. The structure is intentionally simple. And if you want to see the structure, the actual campaign structure, again, there's an entire video in my channel where I basically explain all of the media buying structure during that we adopted after Andromeda was rolled out. But it's very simple. It's intentionally simple. The CBO campaign with one ad set per product. Every ad set is filled with validated winners and meta distributes spend between them. A healthy scaling campaign usually runs with 20 to 40 active winners at a time. Anything that stops spending or drifts off target gets turned off, and only killers compete with one another. By keeping the campaign this lean, you eliminate signal fracture. The algorithm sees one clear path for each product, learns faster, and spends more efficiently. Now, the difference between the ABO and the CBO is that the ABO tends to perform well with low budgets, whereas the CBO tends to perform better with higher budgets, and it gets less stable with smaller budgets. So many people told me that they never managed to make the CBO work. And when I asked how much they were spending, the ad spend was very limited, was very small. So usually you want to start with kind of a higher budget for the CBO campaign, especially if it's the scaling one. And you want to put into it only the real winners, only the real killers. So the data sets, the data points for the campaign and for the algorithm stay clean in a way. Want to scale? Before you touch the budget, these numbers need to be true. The ad has survived the testing phase with real spend, not $50, but $900 plus with consistent performance. CPA and ROAS have been stable over at least 7 days, and the ad has been classified as a grand slam or a strong low-profile winner promoted to scaling. If those boxes aren't checked, you are not scaling confidently. You're just slapping some ads into a CBO campaign, and it's not ideal. Again, this 900 should be based on your AOV, so take it with a pinch of salt. It's more important that you get those 10 sales rather than you stick very strictly to the $900 in spend. Now, how to scale? 20% rule. This is the golden rule for steady growth. Once a creative is stable and pacing with KPI, you want to grow the budget in 20% increments every 24 to 48 hours as long as performance remains stable. This feels slow. It's slow. That's the point. Slow scaling preserves the algorithm learnings. Aggressive jumps reset the delivery, and you're basically starting from scratch. Some brands prefer to push harder. If they see a winner really take off, they might scale by 50 or even 100%. This is riskier and less convenient, but it can work, especially with a strong validated offer and with a massive TAM. What I would recommend is mastering the 20% rule first, and then aggressive scaling can be an advanced version of that, but I wouldn't default into it. And if you need to downscale, you can still roll back by 20%. Usually means that something went wrong earlier or something external changed, some algorithm updates, microclimate, season. Usually the CBO campaign tends to be very stable if you set it up correctly, and you don't want to be overreactive. If you scale back too much, you risk resetting the learnings and starting everything from scratch. If performance goes down for 1 day, you don't want to touch it. If it goes down for 2 days, you don't want to touch it. If you are super overreactive and you're constantly touching the budget, that's going to impact the stability of your campaign, so that's not ideal. Now, in terms of creative fatigue and scaling iteration cycle, one thing that unfortunately we kind of have to come to terms with is that winners don't last forever. Fatigue is inevitable, but if you follow the process, if you've been running the iteration ladder every single week, by the time a winner slows down, you should already have a bench of variations that are already performing at the very least in the testing campaign, ideally in the scaling campaign already. You can simply turn off the fatigue ads and let the next winner take its place. You don't want to panic, you don't want to scramble. You've been building the bench all along for this moment, so you simply do what you already prepared for. What the cycle looks like in practice: Grand Slam goes live in scaling, performing at $1,000 a day. You run the ladder, one iteration. 2 weeks later, the original ad, for whatever reason, starts showing fatigue. But by then, you have 3 hook refreshes that are already graduated from testing. The best refresh replaces the original, so the machine keeps running. This is why testing and scaling campaigns must work as a system and not as 2 disconnected efforts. This is how we look at it, at least. Now, the portfolio approach, you don't scale one ad, but you scale a portfolio of winners, so no single creative carries all the weight. This is how we approach it. And if 80% of your spend is on one ad and it fatigues, your entire account drops, and that's not ideal. If you've got 20, 30 winners, each carrying 3 to 5% of total spend, which is obviously not always possible, but a setup like that would allow one ad dying not to kill you and not to lead your company into a crisis. And this is why stacking low-profile winners matters so much, because they might not be heroes individually, but together they form this stable base that holds your account together while you test for the next Grand Slam. ASC Plus versus CBO in 2026. For years, the CBO was the default for scaling. Today, the Advantage Plus shopping campaign has become a stronger option in most cases. ASC Plus works best when your account has healthy signals and steady purchase volume, has depth of creatives and a strong bench of validated winners, and you want to combine prospecting and remarketing in the same campaign. If those boxes are ticked, the ASC usually outperforms the CBO. Again, here I'm taking a stand. It depends case by case, store by store, account by account, but both approaches are valid. What matters is matching the tool to the maturity of the account. That said, building the system, SOP, team, and workflow. This is something that might be slightly advanced if you're starting from scratch, but I promised we were going to talk about scaling the ads, so let's talk about scaling the ads. Everything I've taught you so far is a skill, and skills are great, but skills live inside one person's head. If you want to scale this beyond you, you need to turn it into a system. It works inside person's head, yes. Today we have agents, and I'm still wrapping my head around how massive agents are and are going to be. So everything you see here, take it with a pinch of salt. This is everything we've done the last 3 years, 4 years. With agents, things might change. You might need less people, or you might have like a bigger output. This is something that is apt to debate. But anyways, in terms of the scaling roadmap, we have a 5-phase scaling roadmap. And this is what I would call our scaling philosophy. And before we talk about systems and teams, you need to understand that what you focus on changes based on where you are. So the biggest mistake brands make is doing phase 4 work at phase 2 revenue, and that's obviously a problem. But this chart here shows you how we look at growth. The first phase is $0 to $10,000 is where we focus on the offer, and this is where the testing budget is pretty much 100%. This is where usually you have one freelance editor and the founder creating the ads. And the key action here, the main focus is finding a Trojan horse. And the Trojan horse is basically a combination of the offer, audience, and angle, something that can get you to spend $10,000 a month profitably. Then phase 2, and by the way, phase 1 is the most difficult, is the most annoying, is where you kind of want to get out as fast as you can. Phase 2 is where you go from $10,000 to $100,000 a month. And the primary variable here is the ad. What you want to learn here is to multiply winners, and you want to somehow build what we call the iteration muscle. I showed you the iteration framework. This is one of many, but that's more than enough for you. Ideally, at this stage, you want to bring the testing budget to 20%. And usually as a team, you will find a freelance creative strategist. Phase 3 is where we go from $100,000 to $500,000 a month on ads, on ad spend. The primary variable here is the angle. You want to keep iterating on the ad, and you want to keep iterating on the main first angle, but you want to open up new angles. Now the testing budget percentage goes to 10 to 15%. And at this point, you start having a full-time creative strategist and a full-time video editor. The key action here is validating at least 3 new angles. 3 to 5 would be great, and you can use the EPIC framework that I shared with you in this video. Then phase number 4 is where you want to go from 500 to 1.5 million in ad spend, and this is where you focus on the audience. So the testing budget percentage here is 5 to 10%. At this point, you usually have 1 full-time creative strategist and 2 full-time video editors, and the goal here is validating 3 new audiences. Phase 5, over 1.5 mil. This is where you play with the TAM. This is where testing budget goes up to 5%. This is where you have 1 senior creative strategist, 2 full-time creative strategists, 3 to 5 editors. This is where you're basically building an agency. You're basically working in a pod system. And the key actions here are basically related to playing with the TAM, so localizing, new offers, going retail offline, and so on. Here you have a clear breakdown of each phase. One thing that I would love you to understand, I pretty much went through all the points here as I was walking you through the chart, like the table that I showed you. If you want, you can just pause the video, take a screenshot, and then read everything here yourself. But everything that you see here, again, take it with a pinch of salt, simply because you need to adjust all the numbers to whatever you're selling. What I have always seen in 100% of the accounts that we scaled is that this is the right progression. It might not be at 10 to 100. It might not be at 100 to 500. It might not be at 500 to 1.5. But this is the progression. This is what you want to focus at each one of the phases as you're scaling. So this is how we look at it. And again, 100% of the cases, this is where I've seen it, how I've seen it evolve. One thing that's very important, every time you go to the next phase, you still want to make sure that whatever got you there is still stable, is still active. So when you're testing new angles, you want to keep the first one alive. When you're testing new audiences, you want to keep the first one alive. When you're expanding to new locations, new offers, new product lines, you want to make sure that the first one, the one that got you to 1.5 mil, is still alive. So you want to keep feeding the algorithm with new creatives to keep that entire funnel alive. Then the creative workflow, SOP, the 5-stage operational map. This is where we're getting close to the end, but there's still quite a lot, to be honest. So this is something that you want to run every single week, regardless of what phase you're in. The first stage is analyzing. So this is where you open the ads manager, you go to the ad level, filter by naming convention, you classify every high spend ads as I showed you, Grand Slam, low profile, false winner, that. You want to note what worked and what failed. And as an output, you want to have a short list of decisions that you can protect, iterate, adapt, or kill all of the ads you analyzed. Then stage 2 is preserving. Once you find something that works, you want to make sure that you preserve it. So you want to turn those learnings into the building blocks repository that I shared with you. You extract the validated hooks, the validated problem scenes, the validated proof segments, the validated CTAs, and you log them into the building blocks. Log failed combinations so you don't repeat them as well. The most important part here is understanding that this is going to give you that compound effect that you're looking for. So as an output here, you have a richer DNA repository that your team can use, that you can use the next time you're building your own ads. Stage 3 is where you plan. So you turn those insights into priorities for the week. You set your portfolio mix and you start producing in stage 4. Stage 4 is where you write the briefs using the building blocks and the reference board. You assign naming convention, you create ClickUp tasks, editor executes, and you want to do a QC before launch. And then stage 5 is where you launch. The media buyer launches with consistent budgets and structures. You confirm the naming is correct, and you know when you'll come back to stage 1 to read the results. This is the loop that you keep going through every single week forever. You can delegate part of it, you can delegate it entirely, but it's very important that everything happens every single week. The brands that wrap this loop consistently don't just produce better ads, they produce a compounding system where every dollar spent teaches something that makes the next dollar work harder. Now, in terms of roles and responsibility, every creative organization covers 4 layers. And these are leadership, which is basically the vision, direction, resource allocations, and this is what the creative department focuses on. And this is usually, if you are the brand owner, the last piece that you let go of. Then you have high-level strategy. This is where the vision of the leadership gets translated into creative strategy. This is where you own the 3A decisions. This is where you diagnose the account performance. And then you have the execution piece. The execution piece in terms of strategy is turning that strategy into actual briefs. And then the execution part in terms of editing is where the video editors simply produce the actual creative assets. At phase 1, one person usually covers all 4. At phase 5, each layer has dedicated roles. But the layers are always the same, meaning that you want to make sure that each layer has one responsible person. In terms of the realistic throughput numbers, not considering agents, creative strategists brief 100 ads per week. Video editors produce 200 ads per month. Graphic designers produce 250 to 500 statics per month. And these numbers assume clear briefs with references, established naming conventions, and consistent QC. Without the system, cut these numbers in half. Right now, we are seeing the output per creative strategist increase quite a lot, especially if you have built the right agents in the right skills and so on. So take it with a pinch of salt, but this is still to this day what we are seeing with most of our clients. And I think it's a relatively good aspirational level for many brands. In terms of the creative strategist, this is something that I added here. Just wanted to share it because, again, I see many brands that struggle so much finding a good creative strategist. But most of the time, the problem is not the creative strategist, is the system, is the creative system. So what they try to do is force a 10 out of 10 creative strategist into a 0 out of 10 creative system. But that person will always be defeated by the 6 out of 10 creative strategist that operates into the 10 out of 10 creative system. So the system is the multiplier. The person is variable, meaning you need somebody who's very good at executing, that's very good at making sure that the system keeps getting executed, everything works, but you don't want to waste your time looking for that unicorn and giving them a 4-month trial, because it's not what actually moves the needle. What moves the needle is building a strong system. If your system is broken, even the best creative strategists in the world will underperform. And if your system is tight, even a decent creative strategist can produce incredible results. And I've seen this again and again and again with agencies, with 9-figure brands. I've seen it all over. So what you want to do is build a system first and then put great people inside it. And just based on this full course, you have plenty of information to create your system. In terms of meeting cadence and communication, operation is also about how you communicate. This is our hierarchy internally, and this is also what we recommend our clients do. Artifacts first. Before you have a call, have something to show, a brief, a dashboard, a plan. Never meet to brainstorm from scratch. It usually leads to a waste of time. Then you have async second. If there's any question, written notes, most communication should happen without meetings. And then you have the calls. The calls are reserved for decisions that need real-time alignment, onboarding, or complex feedback. For weekly rhythm, 1 creative review meeting per brand per week if you're running an agency. Show analysis, show plan, align on priorities, 30 to 45 minutes max, and everything should be artifacts and async. Finally, we have the creative flywheel, and this is where we put everything all together. Everything I've shown you, online chapters, they're not separate skills, they're one system, and when you connect them properly, you get a flywheel. And this is the flywheel. The research informs your briefs. The briefs guide your production. The production feeds your tests. The tests generate data. The data improves your analysis. The analysis feeds the building blocks repository. The building blocks repository makes your brief faster and sharper. In every cycle, the whole thing gets smarter and faster. So the compounding effect usually looks like this. Week 1, you start from near 0. Week 4, you have some building blocks, some validated angles, some initial winners. Week 12, you have a rich building blocks repository, tighter iterations, higher win rates. Week 24, you usually have 100 ads a week with 2 editors and a strategist, average creative quality dramatically better than 6 months ago. Not because anyone got more creative, but because now we have a system behind it and the system learned. Why some brands always seem to have winning creative? It's because they have a better system. So once again, don't limit yourself to focusing on the talent, focus on the system. The best brands getting past 1, 5, 10 million a month in ad spend. I haven't seen many 10 million a month in ad spend to be honest, but they all have some version of this flywheel running. Research, brief, produce, test, analyze, iterate, scale, research again with new data. Continuously, without heroics, without genius moments, just discipline, consistent cycling. You don't want to depend on that unicorn we weren't talking about, even if you find him, or her, which is not possible in my opinion, or when it's possible, it's usually just a matter of wrong expectations. But you want to rely on the system. You want to have a hero system, not a hero person. The brands that struggle usually are trying to find that one perfect ad. They're launching random concepts every week with no connection to last week's data. They're treating creative like art instead of engineering. They don't have any building blocks. They don't have any naming convention. They don't have weekly analysis rituals. Every Monday, they start from scratch. And by now, you know that this is not what we do here. And this is what we cannot tolerate from you from now on. So the fundamental difference is that you don't go lean on creativity, you don't go lean on your budget, you don't go lean on your team size, you go all in on your system. So what to do next? You now have a complete playbook. Knowing and doing it are two very different things. So if you are a brand owner, you can take this system, you can install it, you can start with a 5-stage operational loop, get the naming convention in place, run your first proper analysis, write one real brief with an hypothesis, start small and let it compound. This is gonna take probably a few months. If you wanna hit the ground running, once again, book a call at 99ads.com/demo and we will show you how we can do this for you, starting within literally a couple of weeks, seeing results literally in a couple of weeks. So speed running the entire process and getting straight to the goal without managing people, without installing your own system, without having to hire anybody. We do it for you at a fraction of what it would cost to actually do it yourself, not only in terms of budget, but also in terms of time. If you're a creative strategist, this is your career accelerator. The creative strategists who grow the fastest aren't the ones with the best ideas, they're the ones who run the tightest systems. So build your building blocks repository, run your analysis every week without fail, write briefs that make editors say, I know exactly what to do, and that's how you just grow within your career. If you're an agency owner, the system is what separates We Manage Ads from We Have a Creative Engine. Install this for your clients and you'll never lose them. We have an insane retention rate right now. Churn rate is incredibly low, and there's a reason. The reason is pretty much here. The system is that differentiator. Whatever stage you're at, the move is the same. Start a loop, run it consistently, let it compound. The flywheel doesn't care about inspiration, it cares about showing up every week, reading what the data says, and making the next batch slightly better than the last. That's the entire system. Thank you for watching this far. Now you have the complete system, but if you want to see how AI is changing this entire game, and now the fastest growing brands are using AI to run this exact process at 10x the speed, click this video here where I break down the new AI ads strategy that's taking over right now, and it builds directly on everything you just learned. So I'll see you there.